I was born with lymphedema, but wasn't diagnosed until I was a teenager. So when I was a kid, my parents took me to a bunch of specialists, and no one knew what it was. They thought it was like a bone growth thing or something that was making my ankle bigger, and all kinds of stuff. So my mom had a friend who was a plastic surgeon who was over for dinner one night, and I asked her, like, is there anything you can do to reconstruct my leg and make it normal? Because I'd started getting teased. I went to an all-girls Catholic school, so it was, very hot environment for that kind of stuff. And I was just miserable, and I was like, anything that can be done to surgically fix, my leg. And she took one look at it, and she was like, she touched it, and she said, that's all fluid, that's lymphedema. Like, don't let anyone, cut into that. And because her dad had lymphedema, so that's how she knew what it was. So I, ran up to my big Gateway desktop computer and I went into Google, and I was looking up lymphedema, and it was all the scary, extreme photos and everything. And I was 14, and I thought, this is going to be my life. So I was really devastated, and I went through that mourning process I think a lot of us go through when we first get that diagnosis. I think nowadays it's a little different in that there's so much out there online now that mourning process is maybe a little bit shorter, because it kind of gives you, now the word gives you a community and answers and treatment. But before all that was accessible, it was kind of like, you're filling in the blanks yourself. And it was, my whole teenage years was very difficult with that, because my body image was just in the gutter. I was thinking that, my worth was tied around my leg, and maybe if I weighed less, my leg would be smaller. And so that, of course, developed into an eating disorder and all of that. So it was a lot for a while, and it was a lot of resentment towards my leg. But luckily, I live up the street from a really great lymphedema center. So I got in to see them as a teen, and did, the complete decongestive therapy and all of that. And that helped a lot, but I, of course, did not want to wear my garments whatsoever. I was, not compliant until maybe my mid-20s. I finally had a come to Jesus moment, and I was like, if I want to feel better, I have to just wear the damn things and just do it. So, sorry, I'm jumping around, but yeah, it was that kind of, roller coaster we go through, where we're in resentment, we're in denial, we don't want to even acknowledge it, and then gradually it becomes a thing where it's like, all right, well, this is not going to change, but I can make it a little better to live with if I just do what I'm supposed to. So,
right.
Yeah.
And it is amazing how many more tools are available now. I mean,
Yeah.
I was just listening to your story, remembering how many parts of my story were similar.
Yeah.
So, I originally got diagnosed when I was a teenager as well. I had it because of surgery.
Oh, wow.
But so I didn't have primary, I had secondary, but I went through many of the similar things that you were describing with the body image, and also not being compliant. And that, for me, I just came to a point where I was like, if I don't really hit this head on, I am going to be one of those people who is debilitated for life.
Exactly.
So, and then the boat really turned around for me. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's so relatable.
It's amazing though. I think, one thing that is similar in our story also is just being activated by, by the learning and motivated to try to improve the situation for others.
I love that word, activated. That's so true.
Well, I think, part of the story that I'd like to hear you talk about is how you moved from, being a patient to being an activist.
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, I started the blog in 2011, I believe it was, and I was a college student in Vermont, and I was trying to find stuff online for young people with lymphedema, and there was nothing, nothing at that time. So yeah, I started the blog just as a very personal, just shouting out into the void and see if anyone was there. And like pretty quickly I got comments and I got people reaching out to me and responding to it. So it was like, oh my gosh, like there's not only other people who have this, but people my age who have it, people who, were born with it also. It's not just, breast cancer related, or it's not just, it's all kinds of people who have this. So the blog started very much, because I was like very young at the time, so I had no idea what netiquette was, or like what, what's responsible to put on a blog and what's not. So it was kind of just whatever I felt like putting on there. Didn't really have a concept of how much it could reach people or how far it could go. So I probably have some cleaning up to do, a rainy day activity, clean up the blog. But it was very raw and personal for a while. And then as it kind of picked up steam, I started doing a fundraising. Well, even before the blog, when I was in high school, I did a fundraiser before it was Learn, it was Lymphatic Research Foundation. And I did a thing at my school where I showed they had like a marketing video about lymphedema. And so I sent away for it. They sent me the DVD and I showed it at my school and I gave a little speech. I didn't disclose that I had lymphedema, but it was kind of that first step to kind of speaking up about it. And I raised I think $500 for like a jeans day. It was a good motivator for my classmates.
Nice.
But yeah, everybody, was really interested to learn about it. And that, I think, probably planted the seed of like, okay, well, this is something that I could do. So fast forward to when the blog started, once I realized I had an audience of people who were also looking for that connection, but also wanted to learn tips and tricks and learn about research and this and that, I realized like, okay, well, this is a platform that I can really build. And I inadvertently went semi-viral in 2015 because I wrote a piece about this girl in Canada, Isabella Leclerc, and she has Parkes-Weber syndrome. And she had contacted me and I shared her story on my blog, and it got like picked up by like all of these different outlets like People Magazine and Cosmo and all this stuff linking back to my site. Yeah, and it was crazy. And she had such a great story, great message, because she had a really extreme case of lymphedema in one of her legs. So it was a really body positive message, and that drew more people in. So I kind of had this big jump in views. And so I thought, okay, well, now that's grown, like what can I do to sort of maintain this and provide value back? And as I was getting older and going through school and everything too, and learning more about proper citing of your research, in articles and, what kind of stuff people really want to know and how to write in an engaging way and all that kind of stuff, it evolved into more what it is now. And as you guys know, you meet so many people in the community, especially online, and, you go to events and you network and that grows. So that allowed me to meet people like you who I can do product reviews for the community, meeting medical professionals and do interviews about the work that they're doing. And so it really kind of just evolved into this thing that I wish I could spend more time working on it, but it's definitely a passion project for sure. But one day I hope it can be a full-time thing. So yeah.
Well, the one thing I've always admired about the Lymphie Life is it, you kind of touched on how you didn't have those resources. I feel like your blog is one of the main places to go for the resources and to find the other blogs and to find like the partnerships and to find the support. And it's really admirable what you've done.
Thank you. I
created
appreciate
something
that.
that wasn't there.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like I wanted to create what I wish I had, when I was 14 years old, what I would have wanted to see, and building it up and creating not just, my own writing on there, but having that resources page and organizing that in a way that's useful to people and kind of being a jumping off point for people is something that I really hope to be. And I think there's so many people in the lymphluencer sphere now too. Everybody has like their own kind of role and own kind of thing that they bring to the community. And I think that's really special. So you have people like Veronica Sanirez, who has her Facebook groups that are like incredible support groups for people. And she does these great fitness challenges and stuff. And then, there's all kinds of people doing amazing, great things, and we all kind of fill these little roles in that. So it's amazing what it's become.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's broadening. And one of the things Ayla and I talked about before we were reaching out to you is we have now this, you were just talking about it. We have kind of a mini group of essentially female founders who have started these different pieces of the ecosystem. And they're all incredibly interesting people, and each person is doing something a little bit different, like you said. Yeah. I mean, I think your website or your blog is just a treasure trove of information.
Oh, thank you.
I have gone back on many times and looked up articles I've read or searched for new information. I think it's fantastic.
Thank you.
And nobody else is really doing quite that. I think other people are having other pieces of that. Like Amy Rivera, she has her thing.
Yeah.
Veronica does her thing. Ginger Pear, can't remember her real name.
Oh yeah, Kara. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole different aspect. That's a whole different group audience that she's reaching. But yeah, I think it is providing a lot of the things that we didn't have when we were growing up. Just the awareness that there's lots of other people out there experiencing the same thing. I remember, I mean, to be completely honest with you, I never knew any other person in Alaska that had lymphedema. I mean, now I know a lot of people, but for decades, I didn't know anyone. I thought it was incredibly rare. Turns out that was not true. And I didn't ever talk to anybody that had lymphedema until I was preparing for my lymph node transfer surgery. And I was put in touch with somebody from Florida that had kind of similar situation to me. I think she was the same age and also leg and was getting a lymph node transfer. So she and I had a good discussion, and that was literally the first person that I had ever met that had lymphedema.
That's amazing.
So, I mean, what rock was I hiding under?
But I mean, I hear that a lot still from people that I'll get comments or emails that are like, I had never knew anybody else had this, and I thought I was the only one, and blah blah blah. So it's those rocks are still out there, and people are still under them, and it's crazy to think because we're so immersed 24/7 in the community and in the world of it and everything, and it's hard to imagine that people don't know about it and that we're out here, but there are. And so I think we're kind of chipping away, all of us together, and making it more aware. But yeah, there's so many people living with this that just feel so isolated still. It's crazy.
Well, Alexa, I wanted to ask you, because you've done a lot of events. I think you've participated in a lot of conferences and group sessions. I'm just curious from your perspective, what are the most important groups that you've, interacted with, or conferences that you've gone to, or meetings, or I'd just like to get pointed in the right direction from your perspective. I mean, I'm sure there's lots of our customers that would like to know sort of patient-centric meetings, but then also we would like to know from an industry standpoint, what are the ones that you really resonated with?
Sure. Well, I really had a lot of fun with the NLN. I went in 2019 in Boston, National Lymphedema Network. I feel like that one, I always feel like going to conferences is like going to summer camp, because you see all the people that you've been friends with, and you miss them and you see them again, and it's a lot of fun. I know that conferences can be a little cost prohibitive for people though. So a lot of them, I think, will have like some kind of, pricing situation for patients, possibly. But if people can go to conferences, I think those are great, because you get to hear the research that's being done. And that is so validating as a patient, to be able to see like, wow, these brilliant minds are studying what I have. They are working to make my life better and the lives of my community better. Like, it's just really powerful. The Fat Disorders Resource Society conference, I've been twice, and I think the patient community at that conference is always really struck me as more of like a sisterhood thing, because it's a lot of lymphedema and Derkham's patients, and that one's a really interesting experience just from that patient perspective. Like, it's just, you can tell that they all just love each other, and they're so supportive of one another, and it's really great to see that.
So what was the name of that second conference you mentioned?
Fat Disorders Resource Society.
Okay.
Yeah, FDRS. Yeah, they're a pretty good one. And they were in my, sorry, my voice cracked. They were in my city a couple years ago before the pandemic and stuff, so I was able to go there as well. But that's a nice one. But any kind of like local events, I've been to some local fundraising events or walks to stomp out lymphedema or what have you. And those are always nice too, just to kind of meet people locally and, that kind of thing. But they're not always, available, but I feel like they're out there if you kind of Google around a little bit or ask your clinic or something.
Now that things are starting to change, what's going to change for you?
For me, well, I was just telling Ayla before we started, I, began a new job with LymphoPress and a medical solutions supplier. And so lymphedema is now officially my bread and butter. It's everything now. Yeah. So
congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really exciting. I'm in their marketing department. So it's like kismet. It just felt so perfect. So hopefully, through that, I mean, I'm already scheduled to go to the NLN this October with them. So I'm hoping lots more conferences and, things like that, more blogging I have to make time to do. But I just, sorry.
You're sharing this, you're with Cameron Ayla. He's also doing that, right?
Mm-hmm. And
That's
Mary
fantastic.
Castleberg is another lymphedema patient who works for them too. So it's neat. There's like a couple of us that are on there. Yeah.
That's
and they really care about the patient community, which is what drew me to them. I would never want to work for a place that, didn't care, but they do so much. So I really enjoy that. It's broadening my, network even further. And I've also been able to bring my contacts into work, and, because we do like a thought leadership series every month where we interview medical professionals. And I know so many from, my life with Lymphie Life. So been able to use those connections, which is great. So very nice to be in the lymphedema world fully now. Before I was working at Johns Hopkins Medicine in their marketing department, and which was great, but it wasn't lymphedema. I did some stuff with their plastics department who did lymphedema surgeries, but it just wasn't what wasn't the full focus that I wanted to have on it. So
you have a lot of expertise in this area, and it's nice to be able to tap into that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nice for LymphoPress to be able to tap into that.
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That does beg the question, though. I think a lot of people, as Laura was touching on, there's a lot of entrepreneurship in the lymphedema space.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that there's a lot of just single people out there who are working full time and then also trying to build a brand. Do you mind talking just a little bit about that piece? Sure. You've been doing it a long time.
Yes, sure. I mean, I'm not, a paragon of multitasking or anything like that. There's definitely been periods where, like when I had first started at Hopkins, like 3.5 years ago, the amount of posts I put out that year, I think was maybe like 7, whereas the year before I put out like 30, so it really varies a lot depending on my work and taking care of my mental health too, because I get burnt out very easily. And then I tend to get avoidant, because there's like this looming list of things. I'm like, pretend it doesn't exist. But I like to make a lot of lists. I'm very big on having physical paper planners and all that stuff. And I try and schedule out, time to write and time to, at least every day. I go online every morning and I see any new articles about lymphedema or lipedema, and I schedule those to post out on my socials for the day. And so at least I'm kind of, not top of mind in people's feeds, but I'm still there and having a presence, even if I can't really be as present as I would like with the social media stuff and this and that. But I think, yeah, availing yourself to tools like social media schedulers, like Buffer is the one I use right now, or just trying to engage more on Instagram is a tough one for me because the algorithm will kill you, you know, on these apps. You have to engage, but I'm trying not to be on my phone so much, but you got to do it. So finding that balance is a constant, constant struggle, but you know, I tell myself too, because I get that imposter syndrome feeling or that, you know, dread of like, oh, well, I haven't written anything in months. And, you know, people are probably going to think that I'm, you know, terrible or this or that. But I remind myself that the audience that I have, you know, they really do appreciate when I do put something out there. They know it's going to be of a certain quality and a certain standard. So even if I don't post something every month or, you know, whatever, like I would like to, at least it will be hopefully worth the wait when I do put it out there. And I shouldn't, you know, stretch myself too thin in the meantime, trying to reach these goals that I can't physically do in the moment. So it's a balance for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that the blogs that I've seen from you are definitely more quality than quantity. So I mean,
yeah, I try to get.
I always look for your blogs when they come through, and
thank you.
Yeah, clearly you put a lot of thought into them, and we love sharing them with our community because it's, you know, there's so many people who haven't heard about you or haven't heard about somebody else who's talking about this, and I think it's just having that conversation to tap into can sometimes be such a lifeline for people.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. And it's true. It is because I've met people at conferences, and when I introduce myself as, you know, the Lymphie Life, they're really surprised because they think it's, you know, either someone a lot older or they think it's multiple people. They don't understand or know that it's just one person who's just doing this in their spare time. But then they're like, oh my gosh, like, you know, I felt like I've gotten so many really, really nice emails from people around the world that were like, I truly felt like no one could understand me, that no one knew what I was going through. And finding your blog and finding all these other people through you has like changed my life. It's given me hope. It's, you know, all this stuff. And so that really, you know, keeps me going then too, and thinking like, okay, this is a worthwhile endeavor. This is something that I should be making time for because it's beyond just me at this point. It's, you know, it's serving a purpose for the community. And I don't take that lightly. I need to put it more in my schedule though, probably, but the, you know, the meaning of that is not, you know, lost on me. So yeah.
Well, I think, you know, one of the things that I notice is that, you know, sometimes we can be on the super front end of people entering into the lymphedema ecosystem. I don't know if that's the right term for it, but what did you call it? Lymphosphere.
Lymphosphere, yeah.
Oh, I love that. But you know, somebody who hasn't even been exposed to treatment or is unaware of the tools, we do run into a lot of those folks.
Yeah.
They're not even aware that they have lymphedema in a lot of cases, but everybody has to have shoes. And so that brings to us everybody from, you know, somebody who has well-controlled lymphedema, they're super educated, they've got it under control, they know what they're doing, all the way to the complete opposite extreme, you know, somebody who hasn't been exposed to any treatment at all and maybe hasn't gotten any care regarding it. We see a lot of those folks.
I'm sure, yeah.
And I mean, it does sort of it makes me wonder. I end up engaging with people via chat or email that, you know, to try to meet them where they are in terms of treatment. But there's a lot of opportunities where I can maybe nudge somebody a little bit forward. But it does strike me as we're talking that there could be some other opportunities for us to reach some of these people either on a live stream or I don't know what the solution might be, but I'm just thinking about all these different people. Most of them tend to be women. I'm in this lymphosphere that we're talking about. Cameron gets to come play at the party for sure.
Yeah, that's
but
yes.
I'm just trying to think of
special guest.
I just think it's a I love this idea of the lymphosphere, and I'm wondering, you know, if there's another way that we can reach this audience other than the ways that we're already reaching them now.
Yeah.
There's not an answer. I just throw it out there.
No, but I know what you mean though, because it is kind of like this, like to continue the metaphor, it's like a solar system of like, you know, we're all on these little planets and stuff. And, you know, how do we kind of make it some cohesive thing so it's easy for people to kind of find their way around everybody and get their needs met from what everybody's offering? Because like we were saying, everybody offers different things. So yeah.
Yeah, and for us, just kind of on the retail side of things, as Laura's saying, it's like we have there's a certain boundary you have, you know, you're not a medical professional. And Laura, with Laura's great experience, it's always just a treat to watch her interact with people because she really has a deep understanding of the problem. And more than I think most retailers, we can talk to people about that. And it's been really nice. But there's always this boundary that you have where it's like you kind of see what might be the next step for somebody, but you also have to be careful about how you kind of relay that information. And so sometimes it's just all we can do is provide resources and say, hey, have you talked to a therapist yet? Here are some blogs that might help. And I think having those more in our tool belt, like the right people to send them to, the right planet to go to, if you will, that would be really cool. And that would help us to get them to the right spot. So.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's sort of what my approach is too when people reach out to me, because I'm not a medical professional either. And so I have kind of like a set list of like, okay, well, here are some links, or usually on my resources page, I'm like, well, there's, you know, links on how to find a therapist. Here's links for other people, you know, because I don't want to guide people the wrong way. And I have, you know, on my contact form, like checking a box, acknowledging I won't give medical advice. And I still get so many people that are like, my leg is like oozing this fluid or this and that. I don't know what to do and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, call me doctor, please. But it's awful though, because I think in our community, people are so desperate because they've been shuttled around or they've not gotten the answers that they've needed. And they're just at the point where they'll just tell a random website on the internet, you know, their intimate medical details just in the hopes of getting some kind of guidance. So I think that, you know, the responsible thing for us to do is, you know, directing them to professionals who can help them. But it is a tough place to be in because they see you as having answers, because we know, you know, about lymphedema and how it progresses and this and that. And, you know, that's more than they probably do at the moment. So we're kind of on these, not pedestals, but, you know, they think that we can help them when we can only do so much without getting sued anyway. You know. No.
Oh, definitely.
Well, Alexa, it's great to see your face, and I hope we get to see each other in person soon.
I hope so too.
I feel like that's coming.
Yeah. Well, I've been watching a lot of Living Alaska. I don't know if you've seen that show, but it makes me really want to come to Alaska. So if I ever do, I will.
Oh, we've got you. We got your back if you ever head up this way.
100%.
I mean, one thing about Alaskans is that Alaskans never watch any of those reality shows. So it's
a house hunting show, so it's not.
Although we know the people that are in them.
Oh gosh, I'm sure. It looks really cool from what I've seen. So, although some of the houses I don't think I could live in, they're very off the grid.
Oh gosh, yeah.
There's a lot of that. Well, let's hope you do come to Alaska someday, because we would love to show you around.
I would love that too. And when you come down to the lower 48.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We're looking for an excuse to go to DC soon. That's not. Are you in Baltimore still?
I am in Baltimore, yeah. So if you go to DC, that's not too far away. So
yeah, we'll definitely connect with you.
Yeah.
That would be great. I guess I had one more question just kind of before we wrap up. I mean, kind of talking a little bit about your vision with your brand, and maybe if there's anything coming that we can expect, or, you know, just if it, like, what you're doing is amazing. So more of the same is also great, but I'm just curious, what does the future look like for you and Lymphie Life?
Well, definitely a Calypso review. I have a bunch of reviews I need to get to actually, but I'm hoping, to get on a more consistent posting schedule. That alone would be, for me personally, great. But I really like the idea of maybe like self-publishing something. I'm not sure what that would be or what that would look like, but I do like the idea of that. And I have this shelf here is just all Lymphie books and different people's books. So I'd love to have my own on there one day. But yeah, something like that would be really a big goal of mine. But that would be probably a couple years down the road. But that's one of the end goals for sure, is to have something physical that people can have that's can offer them. So.
Well, as soon as you get that book written, let us know. We'll put it on our website.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I really do. You guys are the best. I love what you all do. And most people don't understand how something like a pair of shoes can change your life. And I have cried so many times in a shoe store because I can't do things, and it sucks. Yeah, Laura, you know exactly how that is. And it's so frustrating. And I have a twin sister who does not have lymphedema, and she's, my number one support. But it's always so hard when we would go together a lot of times to the shoe store, and she'd be trying all these strappy little sandals and things like that. I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll get these, orthopedic, looking things or something, because that's all that feels good. Or I am uncomfortable and wear things that aren't going to fit. But the shoes that you all provide our community is just an amazing opportunity for us to feel normal and having shoes that we can comfortably wear that look good. It's not like you're making some kind of sacrifice for comfort or style. You get to have both. So I really appreciate what you do for all of us. And I really love the shoes, and I think they're just, I love my little collection of Pandere shoes, and I've had strangers ask me about them too, like when I wear them out. So, you're doing something right. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Well, we're just getting started. We really are. We have a lot more things to make.
Please let me know if you have any new, I think you've mentioned before in the past, kids shoes possibly. And I know that would be.
Kids is on our wish list. I think, there's a lot of reasons why kids shoes are more challenging.
Yeah.
Not the least of which is just that kids shoes are not very expensive. And so if you end up buying 2 pair, it isn't a huge setback. I think a lot of parents don't feel like that necessarily, but
yeah,
right now we can't make shoes that kind of fit into that price point.
Yeah.
But what we are focusing on right now is getting more shoes, that closed-toed shoes in particular, that can handle larger volumes but still look good, because that's where the need is. And we turn a lot of people away, unfortunately, because we can't necessarily service them. But I'll tell you, some of our customers are phenomenally clever. I was talking with a woman this morning, and she took a pair of our Tangos and took out the laces and replaced them with longer laces. And she's got very large feet. She has a lot of swelling. And it's just kind of amazing what she did. The photograph is kind of worth its weight in gold, but she just modified the shoes to make them fit her. And you can see just by looking at her feet, there's not very many shoes that she would be able to wear. She has tried to do some wraps and stuff. So it is a big challenge. Anyway, those are the customers that we're shooting for first, because the urgency is really there.
Yeah, that makes sense. Definitely. Yeah. Well, that's fantastic.
But we have some cool stuff in our back pocket that's going to come out in the next year.
I'm excited to see it, and keep an eye on you guys.
Thank you. And, truly, Alexa, what you just said, that keeps us going. Like, starting a company is hard. I mean, it.
Can't even imagine.
It's every day you're in the trenches. And when we get those emails, when we get that ray of hope of, hey, you really made my day, I could go to my daughter's wedding, or, hey, you made my day, I could sit on the bus and not have people look at my feet. Like, that is, it truly keeps us going. We keep marching because of people like you. So thank you.
Thank you. That means a lot. I mean, you guys mean a lot. Your shoes mean a lot. I mean, everybody that's doing something in this lymphosphere. I mean, it's just amazing how we all just support one another in that way. And you might not even know it, but just by virtue of doing what you do every day, you know, you're helping somebody, you know, and that's really special. So
we're very happy to be in the same solar system with you.
Thank you. I'm too. We're all floating around our little.
We are.
Yeah. The anti-gravity would be nice for our swelling, probably. Not a bad idea. Yeah.
That's great. All right, Alexa, I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you again soon, I'm sure.
Yes, please do. I look forward to it, and have a great weekend.
You as well.
Bye.
Bye.